So what do we do when you hit that moment in your life when everything feels like it's coming to a head and you have overcommitted and you have said yes to too many things, and now you are feeling the burn of everything that is on your plate? And now life maybe even throws in some unexpected things that you weren't prepared for, personal things, professional things, that didn't go as planned. And everything is starting to feel overwhelming. I've been there, and I know so many people who have. So how do we navigate these moments with grace, still being able to keep our commitments, show up as the person that you want to be in the world and the person that you are proud of in the world, and yet get what we need in these moments? That's what we're going to dive into today. Hey, you leader, entrepreneur, business owner, solopreneur, whatever you call yourself, we know you're a visionary business builder, wealth seeker looking to combine a passion for doing good with leading consciously. It's time to shift from a traditional focus of pure wealth accumulation to one that integrates well-being and fulfillment. You're here for a purpose, and it's time to shine your light. So here we go. I'm Alicia St. Germain. Welcome back to the Conscious Edge podcast. I'm your host, and this is something that has come up at different points in my life, and I witness it come up all the time in my clients' lives. And so I thought today it would really be supportive to break down those moments where you have overcommitted yourself and everything seems like it's coming together and needs your attention and needs to be done right now. And there's this whole period of unraveling an overcommitment. It doesn't just happen overnight. So I want to maybe give you some support around navigating that moment. Maybe you're in this moment right now. Maybe in the near future, this is going to happen and you're going to remember this podcast and it's going to be so supportive for you. Or maybe this has happened to you in the past and you can look back and think about how you could have handled it differently so that you're able to move forward and through it with grace. And that is part of leadership, essentially, is how do you lead yourself through these moments? It is not easy. So here's where I would start is number one, I often hear there's a big push around boundary setting, right? So many of the women that I work with at the Conscious Edge are needing to set boundaries. They have a history of being a people pleaser. They say yes when they mean to say no. They end up overcommitted. And the unfortunate thing is when you say yes too often and you don't say, and you're uncomfortable saying no and you overcommit yourself, the unfortunate thing on the other side of it is oftentimes people say yes because they don't want to let people down. They don't want to disappoint people. They deeply want to be there to support people. They are genuinely excited about whatever the opportunity is that they have said yes to. But because they've said yes to so many people and so many things, they end up letting people down because there isn't enough of them to go around. There isn't enough space for the unexpected to happen, and there's not enough space to meet their own needs, and they end up burning out. And so they sometimes can get a reputation for being a bit of a flake. So oftentimes the very thing that a people pleaser or someone who says yes, wouldn't even necessarily have to only be a people pleaser that does this, but when someone says yes and it's out of this deep need to be dependable and be there for people, underneath that, there's oftentimes a big assumption that is related to worrying about being a flaky or not being there to support people. And that meaning that you're not a good person or not good enough. And obviously everyone has their own flavor of big assumption. If this is your first time listening to the podcast, welcome. I'm so excited that you're here. You may not know what a big assumption is, but you will often hear me bring them up when I am talking in this podcast, or you'll hear my co-host, my regular co-host who's not here today, talk about it, Jonathan Duggar. A big assumption is a belief that exists in the unconscious mind that informs you about when circumstances come up, bad outcomes could happen. So it informs you about how you think, how you feel about different situations, and how you interact with the world. And these beliefs oftentimes are unconscious, and they are what drive you to say yes when you really want to say no. And they also have you overcommitting. And it's not the only way that they manifest, but this is one way that they manifest. They'll have you overcommitting to things and then getting the results that you don't want to happen. So if you don't want to be that person that is flaking out on people, you end up flaking out on people because you've said yes to too many things. And so there's a big push because women are taught to be accommodating and taught to be helpful and supportive. And I believe in our deep-seated nurturing nature, we want to be people who support others and are there for others. And even though the intention is really good there, the self-protective piece where we cannot physically tell someone no out of fear of something bad happening, that's where it really crosses over and becomes a problem. So on the opposite side of that, people have become through all the work and push through self-awareness. There's so much talk out there around self-awareness, around trauma responses, around, if you listen to this podcast, it's really, there's a lot of work that's being done out in the world to raise people's self-awareness, and especially in the entrepreneurial space, to really be a great leader and to be entrepreneurial and make it in business. If you're not investing some level of energy, effort, resources, time, anything into personal development and self-awareness and leadership work, then your business will only go so far. It's the reality of it. Once you've got your strategy and tactics in place, usually the next level of coaching that people seek out is to do the leadership work, to do the inner work that it's going to take to make sure that they're showing up for their business in a way that's going to make it more sustainable, joyful, peaceful. There's a really big piece is people just want to feel peace. And so that next level that people go to is they look for that kind of self-awareness. So with all of this push towards self-awareness, and especially in the entrepreneurial space, a lot of times people have gone to the route of boundaries, and boundaries being a very popular topic to be searched online. Boundaries comes up all the time. Of, how will I behave? What am I going to do? What are my boundaries so that I operate in the best way? And the problem is, as with anything that we put in place, the problem is that boundaries can become rigid. And without flexibility, entrepreneurship becomes very hard. And again, the thing you very much don't want to happen, whereas you're trying to grow your business or you're trying to create a sustainable business and you're trying to have it work well, and then you put boundaries in place with the intention of it working better than it has for you. And then you become so rigid in the boundaries that now it doesn't work either. You miss out on opportunities. You become hard to work with, and it can give people a different impression, and a different experience of you as you go through your business and create different relationships with employees that you have as well. So there is a balance to boundaries, just like anything else. Too much of something, too much rigidity around anything, without that flexibility and that thought process of what is it that I'm trying to accomplish here, what's needed in this moment, will be the downfall of your business, of what's enjoyable for you, or whatever it is. Just too much extreme, essentially. So as you're going through and you're thinking about how do I operate best? What are my boundaries? I think that it's also really important to consider what each thing on a case-by-case situation. So looking at and being really aware of your core values. What's important to you? How do you want to show up in the world? What commitments have you made? Sometimes with the boundaries coming up, someone will become self-aware that they have violated their own boundaries and they have said yes to too many things, and now they're overcommitted to too many things. And so the knee-jerk response to something like this is to shut it all down. And this is where we get into burnout. And if you've ever been at a point in your business, we joke about this, but you get to this point sometimes in business, if you haven't been keeping really clear expectations for what works for your business and what doesn't, and interacting with people and telling people how to get the best out of you, and you overcommit, there comes a point where you want to burn your business down. And so the knee-jerk reaction is, I'm going to burn my business down. I'm going to shut it all down. Everything's coming off of my plate. I can't do it. When you're in that kind of overwhelm, and essentially that's what it is, when you have that knee-jerk reaction to burn it all down, that is a temporary response that your brain is having and telling you, we need to shut it all down, because it's in overwhelm, because it does feel like too much. And maybe it's a matter of you're too tired and you need a nap. You haven't been taking good care of your body and you need some food. You need space to just think a minute and reprioritize some things. But it doesn't necessarily mean it all has to be shut down. So when I see someone in their business and they get to that point where they want to shut it down, understand that's coming from an emotional reaction. That's coming from an emotional place of, I can't handle this, I'm going to shut it all down. It's a very all or nothing thinking. It's not, okay, let's slowly take this apart. Let's unravel this. Let's see what is a priority, what's not a priority, what can be done later, what has to be done now, and go through really an evaluation process of everything that is on your plate, as opposed to all or nothing, I can't do it. And I think that that's a really important distinction to know when you're in a state of such a state of overwhelm that you can't even think straight. No decisions should be made. And certainly not in silo. When you have commitments to people in your business, maybe you have clients that you serve, you have other people that you do business with, really sorting out your needs and figuring out what's a priority first, and then having really good communication with the other people who you do business with. And that may take a bit of vulnerability as well. All of that is really important in the bigger picture of self-awareness. Self-awareness isn't just what you need. Self-awareness is what you need and how your actions and what you choose affects other people as well. That is really the full picture of leadership, is really looking at what you need in order for you to feel safe, but also what do other people need from you to feel safe around you. So I say that because, again, with the boundary setting, I'm seeing some extremes happening. And anytime you have any situation of extremes, it's probably going to have an unintended outcome that you really don't want to happen. So, when you're at that point where you've overcommitted to a number of things, and I've been there where it's like everything feels really intense. And what I have learned, number one, is I always make it through those times. I'm still here for as many times as I have said yes when I should have said no to something, or when I didn't communicate that I'm a yes, but here's what I need to be a yes for you. When I have not done those things and I've overcommitted myself, what I have found is I always survive it. And it really takes getting through those moments, putting one foot in front of the other, handling what is the most, the biggest priority at that moment, what is important, learning from those moments so that you don't keep repeating them, and figuring out what is needed, what do you need to have in place in order for that not to happen again. But also having enough sense to know that it probably will happen again, especially if it's your habit, but that you're going to make it through. I can think of weeks where it's like a presentation is due. I've got new clients that I'm onboarding. I'm trying to take care of some family stuff that's going on, and it all just feels really heavy. And what I find is when I focus in on what's right in front of me and not look at the whole big picture of it, then the load lightens with each task, with each thing that I complete. So really focusing in on the fact that, okay, as I complete each task, this load will get lighter. I will get through this. And I think before you do that, you stop and recognize you're in overwhelm. And we did very early on, one of our most popular episodes that Jonathan and I did on this podcast was pretty early on in starting the podcast. And it's like, how do you handle overwhelm? So I'll make sure we link that here. But that's the first place you want to go, is realizing, okay, I need to make no decisions at this moment. I'm in overwhelm. My system is dysregulated. I need to get re-regulated, make sure I've slept or the best I can, got a nap, I have food, I'm back in my body, I am feeling safe, and I am going to figure this out. I promise you that no one is judging you as hard as you are judging yourself in this moment. So just stepping back and realizing, okay, what is the worst that's going to happen? If you are having a hard moment and there are people in your life that do not accept that you're having a hard moment, then those are probably not your people. However, the way that you handle hard moments, the way that you handle these overwhelm, I don't expect someone around me to handle overwhelm perfectly or be cool as a cucumber. But I do expect to see someone, like, if I'm going to trust you and like I'm going to do business with you, I want to see you taking care of yourself. I want to see you communicating with me to say, like, hey, this thing is happening. What do we need to do to continue to honor a commitment? And also, here's what I need support around. And can you help me? I want to see that two-way communication happening. And that's the same thing that I coach my clients with, is like, if they're coming to me in overwhelm, they're like, I don't know what to do. The first thing I'm looking at is like, who do they need to communicate with in order to get more information about how we can navigate through this overcommitment that you have, or even just sometimes like a deal that didn't work out how you want it to, and it's creating some overwhelm, and you're not sure what to do. It's keeping you up at night. You always want to be in communication with the people who are also involved in those situations, your clients, your partners, whoever they are. Be in communication with those people so that they can support you. They're in collaboration with you, whether they're a client or whatever it is, they're in collaboration with you. So they can be supportive, not in the way that they have to like prop you up or save you, but in the way that, hey, there's this thing happening. It's really challenging and I'm figuring it out. Here's what you can expect, or here's where we're at right now. Communicating with other people is going to keep everyone feeling safe. You're going to feel better because you have that off your chest. You're not like just out by yourself trying to figure something out in silo. And oh gosh, I can't let anybody know there's a struggle happening here. There's a difference between putting everything out there. I talk about like sharing the scar and not the wound. But when you're in the middle of it, you've got to be enough of a leader when you have a business to communicate with people in a way that makes them feel safe. Like, hey, this thing happened. I don't know what the outcome's going to be of it. There's some uncertain things, but I want you to know that we're going to figure this out together, or I'm going to figure this out and I'm going to come back to you with some options. I want you to know. I don't want you to be like just wondering. That's one of the things that I see. People wait so long to communicate with someone that then that person has to reach out to you and say, hey, what's going on with this? And now you feel worse because you waited so long, when it could have just been a, hey, I don't have the answers, but I want you to know I'm here and I'm figuring it out. So number one is you've got to communicate with the people around you who are affected by your overwhelm. If that means, okay, so that's number one. Communicate with the people who are affected by your overwhelm, by your overcommitment, the fact that you've said yes to too many things. And you've got to own that. You've got to own that some things, maybe you didn't plan your schedule right. Maybe some unexpected things happened. Maybe it wasn't your fault at all, but it is your responsibility to figure it out. So you've got to communicate with those people. And number two, once you've got your system regulated and you've taken a deep breath and you've looked at, okay, we're going to take things one thing at a time. Let's evaluate where I'm overcommitted. Like, what is everything that is on my plate that is calling my attention? And what is the priority? Like, number one, when we think about priorities, is one, maybe things that are really important to you based on your value system. So for me, my kiddos, they are a priority for me. My relationship with my husband is a priority for me. My commitment to my clients is a priority for me. So for me, just based on my value system, I highly value people. And so a lot of times my relationships with people, or aspects of my relationships with people, do become my priority, and making sure that I keep commitments and I do what I say that I'm going to do, even if that means it has to look a little differently and I have to renegotiate some things. So looking at your value system and what is the priority. And there's a couple components, right? So you may have something on your plate that's not a priority for you. Like it's really not important to you. It's not something you really care about, but it's important to other people. I think then the other thing you have to look at is, if you're trying to move something off of your plate, what is the impact of that? And how, not just the impact for you, but the other people that are involved in the relationship, whether it's a partnership or it's a client or whatever it is, what is the impact that moving something off your plate has? Sometimes when we set a boundary, if we cut something off immediately without taking steps to unravel it and transition it smoothly, we can create a lot of damage in our relationships. And it can damage your reputation, and it can damage what happens in the future. So I think the other thing you have to think about is, what is my future goal? Right now I'm in overwhelm and I'm overcommitted and I'm trying to make the bleeding stop, but also have enough sense to look into the future and say, okay, how I handle this, how I offboard some of the commitments that I've made that are too much for me, how I handle them may affect my future. And so really looking at in the future, is this something that's going to be detrimental? And taking steps to make sure that you protect also that future as well. Now, sometimes, so as you're going through and you're evaluating things, there are things that that are the priority. There's nothing you can do. It's a right now thing. It could be a sick kiddo. It could be a family member that needs help. It could be a deadline for a client that is like, you really need to keep this commitment because this particular deadline is really crucial for something. Could affect financing, could affect, you having to pay more because, if you're a real estate investor and you're doing a project and it means like you're going to have to pay more interest on a short-term loan. Certain deadlines are like really detrimental if you don't hit them. So make those the priority and then look at what other commitments have you made that could be negotiable. And that's when you can go back to individuals and say, look, I've had some unexpected things come up. I need to renegotiate our timeline. What works for you? And then you have a conversation with someone. So often, as I was saying earlier, because of lack of communication, because of assuming that things are not negotiable, because of not communicating challenges that you're having, you make these decisions in silo in this all or nothing way when a simple conversation to renegotiate a timeline or what a commitment looks like, what you need in a process, all of these things can make something that's been keeping you up at night and causing you a lot of distress so much easier because you're working and collaborating with other people that you have commitments to and other situations that you have commitments to. So I think looking at your priorities and what are the pressing things that need your attention now and what does not, and then renegotiating things if other people are involved to get through this time. Now, that doesn't mean continuously always pushing off like business growth. This is one of the things that happens is sometimes people never make working on their business a priority. They never make like doing things that will help them grow their business long term or create a more secure future. They keep pushing those off because they keep handling all the fires. That's not sustainable. Like, don't do that. But when you're in we're talking about those crunch moments where it just feels like the weight of the world is on your shoulders, you can delay something a week or two. And that's okay. This is where we want to have some flexibility. If you need to take some time blocks off your calendar that normally you use for business development and growth during a crunch moment, do it. Just don't make it a habit of it. Go back and put it back on your calendar. Looking at what can be moved off your plate and thinking about how can you transition it in a way that's actually going to be beneficial for anybody else that you have commitments to. So not just saying, I can't do this, but what's the solution for moving it off your plate? Does it mean hiring someone who can sustain this for you? Does it mean moving it over to another person who can do the job like you can? If think about like a consultant or someone who maybe is supporting another business or other individuals in some capacity, like just like cutting people off when they've hired you for a service. That's not, people certainly understand that things come up and there may be a need to transition or change things, but having a solution for that is really important. And going to work to find that solution is going to speak more highly to your character and your commitment than you just have maybe keeping the commitment and not doing a great job at it, or cutting it off and not having a solution for the people that you serve. So be thinking about in your business, what happens if you can't perform? what is, and this, I recently went through this with my CPA when my CPA suddenly passed away. After having done my taxes, the only person who's ever done my taxes my whole life, my CPA passed away. And there was no, there was no succession plan. There was no thought on what if I can't do this, who will step in. There was kind of a plan, but I was not I was not high on that priority list. So I had to figure things out on my own. So really thinking about, and I'm saying this is a really extreme thing, but I think it's really important as business owners that we are also thinking of contingency plans for what if we are incapacitated? What if an emergency happens and we can't perform? Who else could we trust with our clients? Who else could we trust with whoever it is that we serve? And sometimes just making that recommendation and saying like, hey, I am not going to be able to fulfill my commitment to you. I've had, circumstances come up. I feel terrible that I'm not able to do this. However, there's this other company, person, whatever it is, who will be able to support you. We trust them to take good care of you. And here's how we're going to help facilitate that transition. Totally acceptable way to handle it. Your clients and people you do business with might be disappointed, but at least you have come with a solution which speaks highly of your character, that even in crisis situations, you still have the leadership ability to give people options, to give people a way where you haven't left them in a lurch. Because if I am dealing with someone, and I just want you to think a bit about this from a user's perspective, whether that's a client or an end user or somebody who does business with you, partner, somebody who invests money with you. If they see you as unstable and and not dependable, and you don't communicate, you are someone who locks up and just avoids, that is not someone that I would do business with. That is, I would worry that I don't know. I'm not going to feel safe investing with someone like that, because I don't know if they're going to blindside me anytime life gets hard. So there's a certain amount of resilience, and you've got to learn to manage your emotions and unravel these moments of overcommitment. It happens. I want to be very clear. I have been there. I have been in those shoes where I have put too much on my plate. It was hard. I didn't sleep enough. I wasn't the nicest to my family during those moments. I got through it, and I've worked really hard to try to be really careful not to repeat that. And it happens still from time to time, because guess what? Life happens. I get it. People get sick. People unexpectedly pass away. But I look at, okay, I'm having an emotion. I even think of the day my best friend passed away. If you listened earlier on in the year, I think it's been 4 years now that my best friend passed away. I knew she was dying. She was in hospice, had cancer. And I got the call that morning that my best friend passed away. I had seen her and spent time with her just a few days before. Kind of made peace with the fact that she was passing, and felt very comfortable to leave her, as hard as it was, with her significant other, who I wanted them to have those last times together. And I got the call that she was gone. That day, I had a commitment to a number of people that I was coaching in a group setting. And it would have been perfectly acceptable anybody would have understood if I didn't show up and coach that day. Anybody would have understood. I would never judge someone losing someone close to them if they were unable to show up and perform. And I also showed up and I coached, and I didn't tell anyone. I'd learned from years of training. I've been training now for 20 years. I've been training people in group settings, showing up, and one of the things that happens is you when you have a group of people who are depending on you, who've paid to be in a room with you, you do have a certain level of commitment where you've got to sometimes pull up your bootstraps, show up, do the job, and you get to decide in those moments. I get to decide in those moments how I feel. And I will remember that day I felt like she's gone. There's nothing I can do that will bring her back. There's nothing that will change this. However, today, I can still show up for these entrepreneurs and pour my heart and soul into them and lift them up. And I am going to feel better about myself doing that than I am sitting in the grief because I have time for the grief. I can grieve this weekend. I can grieve after that hour is over. I can grieve when I choose to grieve. I don't have to grieve. And this is something I don't think people, when you have self-awareness and you have high emotional intelligence, you do have the ability to choose how you feel and when you feel it. Now, I'm not talking about stuffing down emotions. I'm talking about deciding when to process my emotions. And that is a very important part of emotional intelligence and entrepreneurship, is knowing when you are, like, if I wasn't in a good space, if I wasn't in a good headspace and I couldn't have showed up and I couldn't have performed, I wouldn't. And it would be perfectly acceptable and no one would have cared. And also, I chose when to process those emotions. I chose when and how to process that grief in a way that did not affect my business or the people who do business with me. And those people know that they can depend on me. And when and if I ever have a moment where I can't perform, they're going to know without a doubt that I tried that it is really something serious and that I couldn't show up, because they know they can depend on me. And that's how you've got to show up in your business with people, is can they depend on you? And and there's a process, right? There's a whole host of things, learning how to handle your emotions, how to process things, and have that emotional intelligence to not stuff things down, not keep pushing forward, not keep, and then suddenly get into overwhelm and want to burn it all down because you haven't been handling your stuff. It's two totally different things. So I think what I want you to take away from this is be really careful about how you're setting your boundaries, when you're saying yes and when you're saying no. And if you have overcommitted, more so than anything, be careful about how you choose to unravel it, because it can have long-term effects and it can take a lot to come back from if you have a pattern of being kind of up and down in your emotions. Doesn't mean you can't learn how to have control and choose your emotions. But our emotions actually come from our thoughts. Sometimes those thoughts are conscious, sometimes those thoughts are unconscious. And if you're not aware of the unconscious thoughts that are coming up, and you don't know how to go through and find those unconscious thoughts, you will be ruled by your emotions. You will be ruled by your mind about what you think you can and cannot handle. So it's really important in the way that you lead that you do learn how to handle these moments of overwhelm and overcommitment and learn how to navigate through them in a way that isn't detrimental to your business, that doesn't give this undependable, drama-related sort of pattern in your business. So, with all of that being said, I'm sending you so much love. I know this was a hard episode to hear, but I'm seeing it happen. And especially as the world is so unpredictable and you don't know what to do sometimes, I'm going to say, you know what, more times than not, it will work out. So if you commit and move forward and as though everything will work out, a majority of the time it will. And if it doesn't, if something comes up, then handle it. So with all of that being said, I'm sending you so much love. And if Jonathan were here, he would say, be well. Thanks for listening to the Conscious Edge podcast. Make sure you subscribe and take a moment to be kind and share this episode with someone you care about. Leave a review to help us bring more compassionate leaders building businesses and creating wealth to the table. And for show notes, head over to consciousedge.com/podcast. This podcast and the linked materials are presented solely for general information, educational, and entertainment purposes and should not be taken as personal or medical advice or any kind of mental health treatment. Please consult a medical or mental health professional if you feel you need such services. Please be advised that all investing and entrepreneurial endeavors involve risk, and the use of the education and information on this podcast and linked materials is at the user's own risk.
This podcast is part of the Sound Advice FM network. Sound Advice FM, women's voices amplified.